Welcome everyone. Today is another episode of In Action. And today I have my friend Ellie Spittel. She has already been on my YouTube channel with multiple guests. And I think we have an exception today because usually when a person comes in this In Action, it's already been like in a single interview on my channel. So we have to fix this bug as soon as possible. Ali, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. This is so fun.
Nice. I think it's morning there. Here it's late afternoon.
Yes. It just crossed the 9 a.m. line.
Okay. So it's kind of early. And so I'm sorry. I would love to interview you, ask about your life since you were a child, all your past, but this is In Action. So we are here
Yeah.
to mostly focused on AWS Amplify Studio. I know almost nothing about that. I'm almost a Jon Snow of AWS Amplify Studio. Hey, Roberto. There we go. Yash is great. He has been on my live stream yesterday at 1:30 a.m. So
Oh,
he's
wow.
crazy,
So
amazing.
impressive.
Yeah. So thank you, Yash. And okay, so Ali, please introduce yourself. Okay, I'll be polite, so you have a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, and then we
Cool.
will step into AWS Amplify Studio. I think we also have a demo or something like that. So I think
Yeah.
this would be interesting. So
We'll be
stick with
we'll
us.
be mostly writing live code because that's what developers need. They don't want to just
Perfect.
talk about stuff, they want to see it.
This is what we are craving for.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm
Nice.
Allie. I lead developer advocacy for AWS Amplify. Before that, I was just a normal software engineer, and I also taught code for a while at a coding boot camp. So it's one of my favorite things to see code click for other people because I know it's really changed my career and I know it can for other people as well. But I also now love being a developer advocate because I get to teach those teaching skills. I still get to write code, but then I also get to work on a product that I'm really excited about as well, which is a little bit newer to me. So that's a little bit about me. I also do other things on the internet. I have my own YouTube channel and I blog about things and podcast about things. So I like talking about the code.
But she's humble, but she's a great blogger. She also makes talks about how to blog. I followed this, I think, a couple of months ago, or maybe it was 1 year ago. I don't know. I lost the time track now since the COVID started. I just say some time ago. So
Oh, cool.
nice. So yeah. So please. Be sure to check her out. And yes, Ali, tell me when if you are ready, if you want to share a screen, how would you like to start introducing this? By the way, welcome everyone. I think this will be interesting. So stay with us. Hey,
Awesome.
lots of
Yeah.
Pankaj, lots of people. Nice. People are coming. There we go.
Hey, everybody. This is
There we
fun.
go. Aldrin. There we go. We have a lot of people. Hey, Engine. Perfect. No, you are in time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Came right
Okay.
in time to start the demo.
Okay, so tell me if you want me to share the screen
Yeah,
and
go
then
for
we
it.
can start. Perfect. We have that. Okay.
Perfect.
This on this. Maybe this one.
Awesome. So first off, just to introduce what AWS Amplify is it is a set of tools and services that bring the power of AWS to front-end developers. Specifically, there's a different set of needs and use cases that front-end developers have. And so how I like to think of it is bringing the full stack to front-end developers. So you don't need to have super deep cloud knowledge in order to build a full stack application, which I know for a lot of people who are maybe trying to build a side project or they're trying to work on a small engineering team at a startup, or maybe you just have a lot of front-end developers at your job. No matter what, you can use AWS Amplify to build an application, and it's going to be backed by AWS. It's serverless. So you don't have to worry about like the scaling or anything like that. You can even export to CDK if you're more familiar with AWS, which is the Cloud Developer Kit. You don't need to know that at all for this tutorial though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dive in. This is the Amplify Sandbox. So it's at sandbox.amplifyapp.com, and it's going to ask you to build a blank with blank. So you can choose from the different frameworks that we support. There's mobile, but there's also web here as well. Like I'm mostly a React developer, so that's what we're going to use today. And the brand new UI components are mostly for React at this point, and the code generation that I'll show you is for React right now. So building a React app, and I'm going to start with a blank schema. So then I'll click get started.
Nice. It looks great.
Thanks. That means a lot. I have been really excited to work with the UX design team on this and see their thoughts on the flows and all that.
And just want to point out very, very fast that this is also my first time that I check this. So you will have my honest reaction. We could have called this like AWS Amplify Studio reaction. Like, okay, so this looks fine.
Cool. That's awesome. And you can ask like real questions too, instead of it being like posed ones for the stream. So on the left-hand side, it has a list of things that you can do, but we're going to start with a data model, and I am going to make one for a rental. So we're going to create an Airbnb type clone, a simplified version for sure, because it's pretty complex. But at this point, we'll create a rental, and each rental is going to have a name like fancy mansion in the hills or beachside cottage. They'll also all have an image associated with them, and then a price and a location. And the price is going to be an integer. So you can choose from different field types over here. You can even do like custom types or enums. And you can also make these different fields required or array fields as well if you want to have your data related or a list of information instead of one piece of information. You can also create multiple models, have them related to each other. It's almost like creating like an ERD or entity relational diagram. It's just that once you click deploy, it actually will deploy this data model instead of just being something that you use to plan out your data.
Nice. If you have any question, feel free to leave it in the chat. But for now, for me, everything is clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very much here for any questions. I've been really lucky to be working on this product since before there was like an engineering team even for it. So really, really early stage, and then getting to be a developer on it before it launched to the public. So I do have a decent amount of experience with this, even though it's pretty new. So once you have that data model, you can test it locally. And for this step, you don't even need to have an AWS account. So we're not even in an AWS domain right now. We're sandbox.amplifyapp.com. And before you deploy, you can test this all out locally in your own code. You can build out a React app around this if you want to. I am going to go ahead and deploy to AWS. And the really nice thing is that this data automatically is online, offline ready. So it will be synced to your cloud database as soon as you deploy to AWS, but you can also use it local only. It stores your data in IndexedDB in the browser, which is kind of like local storage or session storage. It just has a bigger memory limit, and it's also asynchronous, which is pretty handy when you're doing anything more complicated.
Nice. They were asking if you are building a web app. I think so. And I think also she'll deploy that.
Yeah, definitely. So Amplify works for web or mobile. Some of the features that I am going to show today only work for React right now, but for the most part, Amplify works for a web app or a mobile app. And so I will be deploying to AWS. It's like serverless. So yes, it is a server behind the scenes. That's always the joke with serverless, right? That it's really just somebody else's server, but you don't have to manage the servers, which is pretty nice.
It's someone else's computer, yeah.
Somebody else's computer, exactly. You're renting a piece of a computer that's in a fancy data warehouse. Cool. So nice. I now have the option of creating an AWS account or already having one. I work for AWS, so I do have an AWS account, luckily. But if you don't, it'll take you through that. And then you'll want to create app name.
Okay.
So I'll call mine Studio Live, and then you also choose a deployment region. So normally you just want to pick the one that's going to be closest to your end users. I am in the middle of the country, so I just do like US East 2.
Okay.
And then deploy. So this will take a couple minutes, and I can answer any questions.
There are some questions, so
Cool.
maybe we can. It's cool that we have some time to answer questions. This is the deployment time. It's perfect to the answer the question. So, is this an SRR app? If that is the case, does Amplify split the server components into different serverless services automatically? Great question.
SRR. Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, we are going to be behind the scenes deploying all of these serverless services behind the scenes. So with our data model, we're going to be deploying a DynamoDB database and then also an AppSync API. And you don't need to have heavy cloud knowledge of either of those to use this, which I think is really nice as kind of a front-end developer. You don't need to have as deep of cloud knowledge as you might in order to use those services directly. You can also use things like Lambda through Amplify.
Just to clarify, Pablo is intending SSR, so simple storage, not simple region. So
okay, and then SSR.
So now it
server-side
makes
rendering.
sense, because for me, region, it was not super clear. So now it makes sense with storage. Be careful with acronyms, please. Yes.
Cool. Okay. And so server-side rendering would be for the front end. And so you can use Next.js SSR. We're going to just be building like a basic create React app for the sake of this demo. However, behind the scenes, or if you wanted to, you could build a Next.js app with server-side rendering instead.
Okay, so server-side rendering, so it has nothing to do with storage. Okay, and another first question is Amplify low or no code?
Okay, so I have feelings about those terms. So I think some people would define Amplify as low code or no code. Actually, not no code. It would not fit under the no code paradigm. So how I would say that it is low code is that it does code generation for you. So something similar to Ruby on Rails or something like that, where it will generate React components for you and also your server-side code. So your like backend logic, it will generate that for you. That being said, it's not like an escape hatch in order to see the code, and it's not built for non-technical users. So it's not like a Squarespace or anything like that. It's built for developers. That's the persona that we're building for, is front-end developers. So there's not going to be like an escape hatch that you need to go to. The code looks like real code. It's not like one line of really long JavaScript that makes no sense to a person. It's a React component that looks like a React developer built it because it was built by a React developer. So I'll show you all that in a few minutes.
Okay, perfect. I think most of the questions were about this. If it's like no DevOps code, we are almost stepping into the philosophical stuff, I think. But let's say that it helps you and it generates some code. If I understood something, so
yeah,
it helps
exactly. So it'll generate some code for you, so you don't need to write it all, from scratch. And it's also serverless, so you get those benefits of not having to do all the server management yourself.
Okay, save your voice because you have also have Twitter Space after this. So be careful.
Exactly. No, I'm good. Okay, so I ended up switching tabs. I always go over my account limit for how many apps I have in my AWS account. I'm a problem child. So I swapped out to this, but it's exactly the same thing that we just created. So we have a rental with the name, image, price, and location. So the next thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to seed some data. So when I was a software engineer, something that we needed to do all the time was to have one front-end application for the end user to use, but also have an admin panel for the customer to, or for the owners of the site to manage the content. So I used to use the Django admin all the time, or the Ruby on Rails admin, and this is very similar to that. So we have full forms in order to create rentals. You can also auto-generate seed data. I'm going to create data that looks a little bit more realistic for this demo, but you can create like 100 rows of data and then add some constraints too. So you could make it so that the name has a certain number of words, or is a full name, or is a street name, or something like that, so that the seed data looks more realistic. But
Interesting.
yeah, that launched relatively recently, and I think it's a fun feature to have, because a lot of times when you're creating a new app, you're going to need to like have some starter data to test out with.
Yeah,
So
and you start thinking about your colleagues, your relatives. You start creating them, but one by one. It's not the best solution.
Yeah.
In the world, in that case,
definitely. Oh my goodness, I think I have so many demos with my coworkers in there.
Nice.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Unsplash and okay, it looks like they okay, they have like
because
an ad
we
at
got the
top here.
stock one.
You gotta
You have to
scroll a little bit.
down. I always make this mistake every time.
Too funny. Okay, so I'll enter that image, maybe like $200 a night, and then Denver, Colorado. That's where I live.
Okay. This is not your house, by the way.
It's definitely not my house. Houses around here definitely do not look like that. I live in the downtown city.
Yeah, we wish.
Yeah, that looks like something in very different part of the country.
Yeah, my house is more or less a garage of one of those houses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is where the seed data comes in handy, so I don't have to come up live with data.
It's nice.
I'll create 3 rentals, and that's it.
Nice. Are they real, these houses, or are AI generated? I don't know.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Who knows? Use Amplify. Yeah, we have a question. If we use Amplify, we'll be able to move to AWS directly if the product scales.
Okay, so you don't even need to move to AWS. It is on AWS already.
Okay.
So it's like a real live DynamoDB database. It's not some like toy version of a AWS database or anything like that. It's using AWS AppSync, which is another service as well. You can also use like Lambda or S3 or Cognito for user management. All of those things are options within Studio as well. So you don't need to escape hash to AWS. You're already on AWS using those same services that you may hear about. That being said, if at some point you decide that Amplify is maybe too front-end focused for your use case, you can convert the code to CDK. So we have extensibility, and then you can use the Cloud Developer Kit instead of Amplify if you want.
Nice.
Okay, so now we get to go to my favorite part, and this is brand new. I got to stand on the stage with Werner, who's the CTO of Amazon, and introduce this at reInvent, which was amazing. But what we're going to be able to do is generate React code from Figma components. So if I click get started here, there is this Figma template, and this is the Amplify UI Kit.
I want to see this with my eyes because I don't believe it.
I know, right? I know. I think
I'm
one
skeptic,
of the reasons that I'm not a software engineer anymore is because there's so much of writing code that just gets repetitive over time, of like writing forms and writing like one-line CSS changes when a designer changes the mockup. And so this really helps with that whole workflow. So this is the Amplify UI Kit. There is all sorts of information. It's like a README right here. So if you're working on this on your own, you can read through that. But there are essentially primitives, and these are things like buttons and star ratings and badges and drop downs and all those basic things that you would expect from a UI library. And then there's my components. And these are combinations of those primitives. So instead of just a button, it would be a card like this with a star rating and a button and an image and all that. In addition, we have a UI library. So if you go to ui.docs.amplify.aws, this is a React component library. And so you can do this directly from code as well. So this design kit mirrors identically this UI kit within code. So for example, like the buttons here correlate with the buttons in the UI kit.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll make a couple quick tweaks within Figma here. So maybe I'll round out the corners of this image a little bit. So maybe I'll do like 6 as my border radius here. This is the fun part, is that I'm very much a developer, not a designer.
We can literally be here like for 6 hours we still rounding borders.
Exactly.
This could be very fast, but since we also have other stuff to do, so just as an explanation. But it's
text, and then I'll also can I remove this background here?
Mm-hmm. For example, it's nice because, for example, I'm a developer advocate now for the Dev. But for example, we have a great, amazing designer, which is like a Figma master. So for example, for him it would be easy now to deploy something in AWS. So it's strange because maybe there is a designer, maybe they don't know how to code, but maybe they do their design stuff at top level. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
And my thought is the developer designer handoff too is that this really simplifies that process of at some point this designer is going to take the design, hand it over to the developer, and the developer has to implement it pixel perfect. And oftentimes it isn't. It doesn't look as good as the developer or as the designer imagined. And this, you don't have to worry about that because it's going to look exactly like those designs in Figma. So what I did is, again, I tweaked the components, and you could go on and tweak all of them, make them all look exactly how you want. You could also make different permutations of the primitives as well. You could change colors, all those types of things. So I just pasted in the link to my Figma file, and it's going to sync in all of these Figma components.
Nice. For example, you. Sorry. For example.
Oh no, go for it.
No, I mean, for example, I'm just making my honest reaction because it's the first time that I see this. This is true, I don't lie. So it's interesting because, for example, now we have just a couple of components. And I think about a designer just, I don't know, like they have designed like 50 components, 100 components. You just want to have a look how it looks. So maybe just to see how it looks, maybe you should spend, I don't know, like 2 weeks, 1 month. So I think this is also, from my point of view, it's interesting because you can see like a working prototype, I think, in days, let's say, instead of weeks. This is
definitely
it's a random estimations, of course, but just to have an idea.
Yeah, for sure. And so some of these components also have like light and dark mode. And so if you have component variants, again, this is like deep Figma knowledge, not my world at all. But if you are more knowledgeable about design than I am, there are the different versions, and then you can go through and accept or reject the components. So I have 28 in right now. Let me skip ahead. You can also do accept all. I just wanted to show you all the component that I updated.
Yeah, I see this sync with Figma. So you are basically syncing. This sync with Figma, does it mean that it's syncing your Figma now? Okay.
And it's really nice because you can keep doing it too. So say the designer changes the border radius or whatever, you can just click sync with Figma again, and it'll import those changes. And I'm going to show you how we combine the data with the component that will stay the same as well. So you don't need to redo that. So you can see that the component that I updated has those updates within here. So it has like the rounded corners, it has the bolded text. So all those changes that I make in Figma come directly within Studio. So I'll click accept all now.
Nice. So you have some components now.
Yep. So I have all the.
We have also made some small. We've modified this a bit, right? So just as an example, of course. But
yeah.
Nice. We are just one person. We are not a team. So for example, we are basically simulating a team.
I'm a
basically,
fake designer. So this can help me with like side projects and stuff, though.
Nice.
So yeah, all of my 28 components that I have within here, like all my marketing components and all that, were imported into Studio. So then I'm going to click into my component. So this is the card A component that I updated. I'm going to click configure. And what I'm going to do is add a prop to my component. So I'll call this my rental. I have two keyboards here, so I just pushed on one.
Yeah, because it was, I thought you were about to write regex just out of your mind, so I was just a bit shocked.
That would be amazing. Cool. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take this image here, and I'll do set prop, and I want to set the source of the image to be my rental image. And it does see data by default. I'm going to refresh real quick. This is in developer preview right now. So there are a couple things that are going to be tweaked before this goes live to general availability. But now you can see that once I did that, the mansions that I loaded in from Unsplash are loading in as well. So if I do shuffle preview data, it'll show me the information about my Airbnbs. So then I'm going to do the same for this. So instead of doing the classic long sleeve t-shirt, I'm going to set it to the rental name. And then this price, I'll do label, and you can concatenate things. So what I'm going to do is I'll keep the $sign here, and I'll set it as a constant, and then do the rental.price. And then I'll also add per night on here. And you can see that now each one of my cards is going to say the price per night. So I can shuffle my data and see all of my different ones.
Yeah. For now, this is until now this is my favorite feature, because you can basically transferring the model in the DB in something visual for the user. Sometimes I don't know why, but every time this happens, something strange happens in the process. Like they add something strange. There's something happens every time. I did this in my life. We always had some problem because you have to basically translate this from the model to what a user sees. So yes, I like this.
Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to list all of my rentals on a page. So I'm going to provide a name for my collection. I'm going to call it rentals, and then I'm going to click create. And then I can choose the layout of the collection. So just how you would have a list of components on a page, that's exactly what this is. So I can choose to do it as a grid instead. I can choose how many columns are in that. So maybe if I want 3, I want them to go this direction. And then maybe I'll add 2 pixels of padding in between them, maybe a little bit more than that.
Cool.
And then I can also choose the data set that renders within this component. So right now I only have 3 pieces of data, but maybe down the road you would want to only show published blog posts on the page, right? So you could have like a blog post data model, and then you could have a Boolean flag on that for whether it's published or not. And then within here, you could do a data filter that says only do the ones that match a certain condition. You can also add sorts. So maybe we'll sort them all by name.
Okay. Is this just for us, or are you defining how this will be shown to the users?
So this will be exactly how it shows in my end application. So let's actually do that now. Let's add this to a React app.
Interesting.
So I'll create a React app here.
Nice. I like this. We are creating this everything from scratch, live. I like this kind of demos.
Nothing is like going on behind the scenes. We're doing it all live. So if anything goes wrong, remember that.
Yeah, and this in that case, this will be on this video forever. But you if you are watching this now, you can see this live. So this is a great thing. Nice. Amazing. So basically, we are now creating a React app, but I just missed maybe one step. So you have something on AWS Amplify Studio, but you are creating. I was thinking like maybe you had like just to clone a repository or something like that. So something is missing, maybe.
Yeah. So
for me, I mean, I'm missing
for sure.
something.
That's what we're going to do next. Is we're going to sync the front end to the back end. But right now, what we're doing is just creating a fresh front end application with React. You could also do this though for an existing application. So say you have a React app. We actually did this for our documentation. So our documentation has a bunch of React components as is, but we wanted to create a new one. And so what we did was we created the design in Figma, imported it into Studio, then took that React code and added it to our full-blown React app that has been out there for a long time. So you can add it to an existing app as well. You don't need to start fresh for like a totally brand new app or anything like that.
Nice.
So I'm going to install the Amplify libraries and the Amplify React components. So I showed you these a few minutes ago, the ui.docs.amplify.aws. This is installing that component library.
Okay, so after creating a say normal React app, these are are those the only two dependencies we need, or is that maybe something else?
Yep, that's it. So you just need the Amplify libraries and then the React components.
But I think it makes sense because sometimes when we have a React app, we also have some, like some UI package dependency to use. So in this case, we'll use the Amplify UI.
Yes.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like you might have React Bootstrap or Material UI or something like that. We're just doing that, but with the Amplify ones. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull our components into our local application. So I call this part copy and paste driven development. If you go to the top here, it has local setup instructions, and you can copy this, paste it in, and run it. And this is going to pull that app that I created in the cloud down to my local application.
Okay, I have just one question. So I'm starting to understand something. This amplify command, I can do this because I've installed that dependency, which is like a sort of amplify CLI in this project, so locally.
Yes. Yeah, okay. That's a good point. So you'll need, if this is your first time building with Amplify, you'll need to install the Amplify CLI, and the instructions for that are here. So there's like a curl command. You can also do it through npm as well.
So this is a global Amplify CLI. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Cool. So when I ran that Amplify pull command, so create React app like generates a bunch of files for you. If this is your first time seeing a create React app generated app within your source file, it generates all of this stuff. So all the stuff that's in white was generated by create React app. All the stuff that's in green was generated by Amplify. So first there's this models directory. And what this is a TypeScript representation of that rental model that I created. And so you can use the nice VS Code features for TypeScript for all of this. So like rental.name and all of those types of things that you get, like the autocomplete and all that.
Nice. Summit Codes is happy. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then the other part is the components that were generated. So card A is the one that I updated. So let's go ahead and look at this one. So it's using that Amplify UI library. So it's using the flex components, it's using image components, and there are props passed to them. And what this allows you to do is override any of these things. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So if you want to update anything in your own code, you can very much do that. And even though I did not write any of this code myself, it looks like real React code. It doesn't look like anything that like a computer wrote to a full extent. Like for example, I did that dollars per night. It generated this as a result.
Nice. So we have, so it seems that we still have control. We have not lost the control.
Exactly. It's real human readable React code. You still have control over it. The one thing is that whenever you rerun the Amplify pull command, it'll regenerate these components. So you don't want to update them directly. We're instead going to use overrides in order to update them. That being said, if you really wanted to, tweak this code directly, say I wanted to change this to like space dollars per night or something along those lines, what I could do is I could just drag this component outside of the UI components directory, and then it's my React component. Like there's nothing that Amplify is doing to manage it.
Nice. I have maybe just one first question. Can we make a local version to test it, or we have to redeploy this on AWS Amplify Studio to check, to see, I don't know, I want to just change a font or a color?
Yeah, you can definitely do all of those types of things locally. In fact, if you wanted to change all of the colors for all the UI components, there is like a theming object. So you can just update that theme object and change, hey, everything that's teal right now should instead be pink. You can do that with a couple lines of code. You can also override any of the styling, and I'll show you that in a minute because all of my images are wonky. See how they're kind of stretched out? I'm going to make them not stretched out via code.
Nice.
So yes, if you wanted to have the designer update in Figma, then you'd go back through with Studio. But if you have something small that you just wanted to tweak within your own code, or if you want to extend this within your own code, you can very much do that.
Nice. I think there is just one question. I don't know much about web dev. Is Amplify not standalone? Can we achieve the same without Figma and React?
Okay, so that's a great question. Some of this you can do with just Amplify itself. So you could build a front end with vanilla JavaScript or Angular or Vue or iOS, and then use Amplify as your backend, and you can create the data models through Studio. You can create authentication, which isn't something I'm showing today, but you could do authentication and storage and things like that through Amplify. But the one thing that right now is React only is this Figma to React component thing. For now, we want to nail down React first before we implement it in anything else. But I'm definitely taking requests. I've seen a lot of requests, especially for React Native, interestingly. So if you have a framework that you want to see the code generation in, please let me know, and I can add that to our PM backlog.
Nice.
Cool. So I just copied and pasted 3 lines of code. And what this does is it configures my Amplify backend within my front end. There's this AWS exports file, and this has information about where my GraphQL endpoint is and also what region my app was deployed in. It's client side, so this is definitely like security approved. We're not going to have issues with me screen sharing this.
Don't try to hack or something.
Yeah. If you try to hack me, like you won't be able to, so don't worry about it. And I think that's worth noting as well is that behind the scenes, this is GraphQL. So there's a schema.graphql. If you wanted to update the data model within GraphQL instead of within Amplify Studio, you could definitely do that as well. So if I wanted to change price to a string, I could do that here. I could run Amplify push, and it's going to be a change that also shows up in that Amplify console too.
Okay.
Cool. So I did that. And then I am going to go into my app.js component here, and I'm going to import the CSS file. So import AWS Amplify UI React styles.css. And it's just a normal CSS file. The other thing I'm going to do is import the Amplify provider. And this is a React component that is going to bubble all the styles down to all of the child components. So this is very similar to if you've ever used like Chakra UI, you have a provider component that has your top level styling. So I'm just going to use that. And I actually put this in the wrong file, so I'm going to move it over.
I think, yeah, this was something that we have installed before, right? And this AWS Amplify, we have installed this dependency before.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll run this on a different server. I have too many demos going.
I don't know why, but in the demos, the simplest is the task, and the more mistakes we make. I don't know. It's always like that.
Always.
The hello worlds are dangerous. Like
That's so true. The gremlins always get you. No matter how many times I practice a demo, like something always goes wrong when I'm doing it live.
I remember I made like a Docker live stream, like the hello world. It was a very dumb mistake. It took me like 30 minutes, and then all the rest of the application like 20 minutes. Like all the rest of the CRUD API with the app, because I was stuck with basically I forgot a common. So just to
classic. Those comments, they'll get you.
That was impossible to catch the error. That's nice, yeah. Sinisa is asking why don't you use the key storage? I can't remember which line, to be honest. I don't know where. Sinisa.
I'm not sure what they're asking there.
It's from a couple of minutes ago. I don't know.
I'm not sure on that one.
I'm not seeing that. Amazing. It's always nice to see someone, because I'm streaming also on LinkedIn and I think also Facebook. No, Facebook no. On LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm streaming on Twitter, which is possible. Strange.
Oh, cool.
But yes.
Awesome.
Nice. So you yeah, okay.
So all that I need to do to get my component on the page is import it from that UI components directory. So within here, I have that rental collection that I created within the Studio UI. Oh, I called it rentals instead of rental collection. So I'll rename the import.
Nice.
But essentially what I'm doing here is just importing that. And you can see that within here, it's a collection, and then it's mapping through and creating instances of the card A component, which is the one that I was also updating within Studio. So again, it's human readable React code where it's creating a grid. And if you've used CSS grid before, this is CSS grid code. And then also the margins too.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. Create React app. Taking quite some time here. Speed up. Okay, there we go. So you can see that once I did that, my items showed up on the page. So all I needed to do in order to get this local into my React app was make sure that my app was connected to Amplify. I made it so that the component library works with the Amplify provider. And then I just needed to import this rentals component that I created and render it on the page.
Interesting. Great. Hey, Shubangji. I don't know. I hope that I pronounced that well. Do you also have the problem of pronouncing people's name? I always feel very bad when I try to pronounce some name. Super bad always. Sorry. Nice, but yes. So basically, you imported. I don't know if that's a correct word. You imported your AWS Amplify project locally, and you are testing this locally.
Exactly. As I'm building out my app, and I could deploy this as is. It wouldn't be a fancy website by any means, but it would be just like this. So I could add front-end hosting, which Amplify does as well. Then I'd have an app with my lovely beach houses listed.
Yeah. Nice. So basically, for example, if you are a designer, you can say you can, I think, almost do this because we haven't written much code. Maybe if you are a designer, maybe you need maybe a basic React course, but very basic, such as
Yeah.
NPM. But for example, you have a Figma file which is super good. I'm not offending you, but maybe we have a better version of this. Maybe because you've worked, of course, a bit more, of course. But you can maybe see this like almost like a website. So I see this very good as a prototype, especially for designers and also for developers. It looks interesting. I like the connection part because we know maybe we are masters on something, but maybe we miss like the links, the connection maybe between what we're doing, maybe the database that maybe we are missing something. Sometimes we lose a lot of time in this process. So maybe I don't know, the design is great. The design is great. The database has been initiated, and then we work to align that. Instead, I see here that we do the whole process end to end in a very easy way. We are also on a live stream. We are trying to explain, but I think if you are alone, I think at your home with some very good music in background, I think it's even easier than this. It can be harder than this, I think. So it's it looks nice. It looks nice because I think this can be useful also if you, I don't know, you want to sell something. For example, let's pretend like a company reaches out to us, say, I want to create a website. So we have done this like in 20 minutes. I think you could also do this during maybe dinner time, maybe after dinner or in the morning, and you can start showing something. And this is something else which is a bit underrated because maybe you don't know if you will get the client. You don't know if maybe you don't want to make a lot of effort before maybe jumping into, of course, the real part, other problems. So this can be useful to get started fast.
Definitely.
I think that this is for me. This is something that already looks very interesting to get started fast. So
Awesome.
nice.
And then the nice part is that it's also backed by AWS, so it's like a real DynamoDB database. You don't need to move off of this once you grow. Like all of these things are there for you. It's not something that you're going to have to migrate away from once you have, real users or anything like that. So the other thing is that you can extend this all in code. So the first thing that you can do is add props to the components, and you can see within the UI docs what different props that you can update. So for example, I just changed the type of collection to list. And so now you can see that they're listed this way instead of a grid. You can do all sorts of things with like margins or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that you might want to do overrides. And so how you do that, and I think this is going to evolve over time, how this API works, but every single one of my subcomponents within here has a key. So this one's like flex, this one's flex image 0, this one's flex 0. And what I can do is I can use these keys in order to override things directly within these subcomponents. So that's one of the things with React is that you have a parent component and then you have child components within there, and you have to pass data down from that parent component down to the child component. And if you're not controlling the component, that can get a little bit of a funky process. And so this is where the overrides come in. And again, the reason why I'm not going to directly just change the code in this card A component is because if I run Amplify pull again, so say my designer makes it so that these corners are even more rounded, if I run Amplify pull to further round those corners out, then it's going to overwrite this card A component, and any custom code that I wrote within here would get overwritten. If I did really want to just change this card A component, I could drag and drop it into my source directory into the UI components, and then it's controlled by me. It's not controlled by Amplify, but I do lose that code generation if I do that. So I'll use the overrides instead.
Nice. I have a first question. Let's say that we have made some changes here. Now, how can we synchronize back? I think with on our AWS Amplify Studio, if this question makes sense.
Definitely. So the front end is unidirectional. So it's going to start in Amplify Studio, and then you pull it down, and you would change it in Studio and pull it down unless you do the overrides within your code, but you wouldn't push it back up. That being said, all the backend stuff you can change locally. So if I wanted to change my API, for example, I could go to this GraphQL file, this schema.graphql, I could update this, then run Amplify push, and that will work there. I could also do, through the command line interface, Amplify add auth, and that will add authentication to my app. And then I'd run Amplify push, and that would deploy the authentication to the cloud. So all the backend stuff is forwards and backwards compatible. It honestly is a really Git-like workflow, where if I do something within Studio, I can run Amplify pull to get it local into my app. Then I can run Amplify push to push it up into the cloud.
Interesting. Okay, this is the link to get started. I think it's this sandbox.amplifyapp.com, right?
Yes,
this link.
exactly.
Okay, this is not a bot, it's just literally me putting this link sometimes. And Sinisa is asking if you can show the deploy and relation with Dynamo, but I don't know how much time do we have, so maybe you can explain some parts, or maybe, I don't know, we'll make an episode 2 if we see people interested.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, we're running a little bit short on time, but it does exist in the DynamoDB console. So if I went into AWS and searched DynamoDB, for example, then you'll see the database that I created through Amplify directly within the DynamoDB console as well. So this is how overrides work. So I showed you that each one of them has an override key, each one of the child components. So this one's flex 0, for example. And I wanted to make it so that my houses were object fit cover so that they weren't stretched out anymore. Remember how they were kind of stretched out? So this is how you do overrides: is you pass in an override object, you pass in the key of the override, and then what you want to do to it. So object fit cover, for example.
Nice. It's I like the. It looks very simple. I think we have been watching this for like less than 1 hour. So it seems easy to get started. Maybe I should learn more Figma, but that's my fault because I'm more a DevOps guy, but that's just my fault. But I'll start checking that. But it looks interesting, and yes, I think, for example, if you already are using AWS for other reasons, I think you're like one step closer maybe to use this, because maybe you're already familiar with some parts of AWS. So I think you can rely on the fact that, of course, the integration with DynamoDB and other stuff, it works good because you are already, as you said before, on AWS. So you're not scared that I can say like to try stuff there. So this is the main thing. What I like the most has been that it seems that you can start faster, which I think is a huge pro. So starting faster, it's something we can, because usually we have a lot of ideas, and maybe we say, oh, maybe we don't have time to put this in practice. So we say, okay, so basically you forget about that after 5 minutes. Instead, maybe this can be worth a try, I can say. So I see this as a good tool, especially to prototype. And of course, from that, you can also go on production. And of course, it's a long process, the put in production. Maybe you need a team, you need someone, but it seems something good to get started. And also it seems, are you done with the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so at least we go back on this part. You can even, I think you can stay some more minutes, Ali, then she has to go because you have a Twitter space, right?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I've got like 5 more minutes.
I'm Twitter space addicted, so probably we'll see in some Twitter space. I make like 5 or 6 per week. And yes, better when to quickly test your product fit. It's so easy to prototype stuff, and I also see this as a great tool for designers that maybe don't want to really start to code. They don't want to be developers, but they are great at designers, for sure, way better than me.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. And then also speeding up that developer-designer handoff, as well as you have this designer who spends a ton of time on the design, and then the front-end developer wants to focus on the fun stuff instead of just tweaking, styling code all the time. And so this really helps with that.
Nice. Perfect, Ali. So now the last question is that when are we go to make the interview just to know a bit more just about you, because this was great, but maybe in the future I would like also to make something dedicated,
Awesome.
like
let me know.
this. I don't know. Let's see. We'll decide, because otherwise you are forced, because I asked you
No.
publicly. So
no, I'm around. That'd be a ton of fun.
Nice. Perfect. So I think we are done. We have a bit of the 30 minutes, but I'll pretend that that's not true. And yes,
sorry, I had a lot to tell.
This is a good thing. If you are on your own YouTube channel, you make the rules, so you can also break the rules. That's the good thing. Nice. Perfect, Ali. So I let you maybe relax a couple of minutes before you start with the space. Thank you.
So much.
You have been crystal clear. I've understood a lot of stuff. Also, it was for real the first time that I've seen that in action. So we are done for
awesome.
today.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.